It's only been 3 games in the NBA season for the Miami Heat, and they have already been pegged as one of the landing destinations, possibly for an underrated player that could become a big piece for this Miami Heat should he join the team. We're going to dive into all the stuff we've heard in social media, as well as some of the reports that are coming out on possible destinations for this player. But before we do that, let's make sure that we are continuing to subscribe to the Miami Heat Digest family. It's an ever-growing family that we feel like is really about to just hit a new level, and we're so excited for you guys to be a part of it as we continue to cover a franchise looking for championship number 5 to add to their resume. But like I mentioned, there is an underrated player that could be a big piece that, depending on where he goes, could be a needle mover, and I think Miami is one of those teams that needle will be moved for. And because of course, another season means that another opportunity for the Miami Heat to get possible trade rumors and maybe help their case for adding these players. The player we're talking about, of course, is Mr. Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz, the center who's only in his 3rd season in the NBA, could be moved according to the kind of reports we're hearing from where the Jazz are trying to go. Again, a young team that's continuing to rebuild. They're going to be in the Cooper Flag sweepstake when that time comes in next summer. Could Walker Kessler be on the move? Because, as we are going to see in a minute here, the pattern has not really been in his favor. We talk about the landing spots here for Walker Kessler per Bovada official. The Lakers have the best odds, but I don't think they have any type of trade pieces, trade assets to give the Jazz, who I believe would look for a rotational or young player plus a pick or two to try and really move the needle for the Jazz. The Pelicans and Magic, more interesting, but their thing is they have already an established young core, and I don't think they're going to want to mess with that. I think they're going to bank on the continuity and chemistry, which brings us to the Miami Heat that I think really have something to give the Utah Jazz. Now, that give that I'm talking about, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be something they love, but from what I saw, from what I've heard, from the just kind of playing from strictly salary side of things, not so much the basketball side, but the salary to make it work for me, it was Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson for Duncan Robinson and Nikola Jovic. Obviously, Robinson thrown in there more so for the salary than anything. Jovic, I think, would be the young player that the Jazz could use, mainly because he fits the role of a development project, but best case scenario, maybe a starter for you, but that's it. I don't think he's going to really get in the way if the Jazz decide to keep a Lauri Markkanen. I don't think he's going to take minutes from Markkanen. I don't think he's going to necessarily be a player that is going to be upset with the touches he gets. I think he'll fit right into the role for Utah as a backup 4, maybe backup small ball 5, should that time come for him. Now, for the Jazz, giving up Clarkson, he's the older, obviously, he's been around the league. He's an established vet, established scorer, 6-man type scorer. I think he would fit great for the Miami Heat because you give another ball handler off the bench. Now that you're starting Rozier and Hero, you're going to need some playmaking, some scoring off the bench. And while Jaime Jaquez, I believe, could do that, I don't think that's really his role. I think he's better if he's in the second unit or even in the starting lineup. Better being that second option, kind of playing off a number 1 in the situation would be Clarkson and with that second unit. So I think that would kind of fit for the Miami Heat. Duncan Robinson, at the end of the day, a shooter. You can never have too much shooting, especially kind of on the younger side of things. Could help the Jazz's spacing. Could be a really good piece that they could eventually flip, again, to a contender that needs the shooting that will always be a commodity in the NBA. This is the trade I came up with. Again, I do believe you need at least 2 picks here, so I'm assuming there's going to be some type of second rounder or first rounder from the Miami Heat going to the Utah Jazz, and I don't think the Heat are going to be able to get any picks back, in my opinion. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But this is the trade I came up with. Again, strictly salary. A few basketball notes in there that I didn't mind, that I thought could work from both sides, but I do think it's going to take a little bit more from the pick side to get the Jazz to sway. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just drafted a 7-foot center that continues to be on the upward trajectory in Khalil Ware. And completely agree with you. But when we look at Walker Kessler and specifically the past few seasons in the NBA, the reason I think this could work, 74 games his rookie year, finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. Very, very good. Started in 40 games. That's the biggest stat I want you guys to really focus on. I know The other things that he does very well, shoots 72% from the field, from 2-point range specifically, 72 from the actual field as well. And you look at his rebounding, he's averaging 8.4 his rookie year. He's averaging 2.3 blocks. Like, yes, the numbers are enticing. But specifically, look at games started. Now look at year number 2. 10 less games, but almost cut half in the starting lineup for Walker Kessler at 22 games that season. Don't know if that's going to be more so of a again, trend, or if it's going to be something that they were experimenting with. Again, injuries could have been a possible outcome, but you got to wonder if that trend continues into this third year, which you could say was a sophomore slump. His second season happens to a lot of the young players, and the junior year or the third year, one could really say for that rookie could be the bounce back, could be the ascendant to another level. 4 games in, 4 games started. That's very good for him. Good trajectory, but you also wonder, is that the Jazz kind of playing to the trade market part of it, trying to get his trade value up so that when they do flip him, it's for something a little bit better than what I think would be right now. If this trade were to happen today, I don't think any of those players, any of those teams that we saw on that list here in front of me from the best landing spots, the Lakers, Pelicans, Magic, Heat, Grizzlies, Clippers, Bucks, or Celtics, I don't think anybody's really going to send you a lot. Again, you probably get 2 picks and maybe a rotational piece depending on who you're talking to at that time. Now, when we talk specifically, like I mentioned, about the matchup that we have between Ware and Mr. Walker Kessler, going to go off their college highlights, or their college stats, I should say, just because Ware hasn't played enough minutes in the NBA, so you can't really measure like that. But if we look at college specifically, you look over points per game for Walker Kessler. These are Walker Kessler's 2 years, one at UNC, one at Auburn. UNC, 4.4 points, jumps up to 11.4 points at Auburn. Very good. Again, a lot of his touches would come off lobs, putbacks, the occasional post-up if possible, but really just kind of being a vertical lob threat and being a glass cleaner on the offensive side of things. Now, look at the defensive side, which is what we're really looking at here. Look at the blocks that he had. 25 at UNC, but then that jumped tremendously to 155 at Auburn. Very, very impressive for Walker Kessler. That's really what is going to be his bread and butter. And, of course, the rebounding. 8.1 at Auburn after it was 3.2 at UNC. Walker Kessler defensively will be a threat no matter what team he goes to, especially on the Miami Heat, because now you move Bam to the 4. You have a real shot blocker behind Bam that I think will deter a lot of these just easy drives into the paint that the Miami Heat have really experienced this season so far. I think that is going to be a very big piece for them. Then you look over at Mr. Khalil Ware, where we have him at Oregon and at Indiana. It's relatively same number of games at both schools, so this is going to be a little bit easier to kind of gauge. 6.6 points, though, at Oregon, jumps to 15.9 points. 4.1 rebounds, jumps to 9.9 rebounds. And you look at the blocks, 45 to 56. A lot of that a testament is to the fact that he's more of a perimeter 5. I wouldn't say stretch 5, even though he was shooting a very good percentage at Indiana, specifically at 42%. But he is a perimeter threat that you have to respect, which is much more you can say from Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler, if best, you're going to get about a 15-footer mid-range, short corner area, elbow maybe. But you're not going to get too much threes. While Khalil Ware does give you that extended range on the offensive side of things. That is where the big thing comes for me. When we talk about specifically a Khalil Ware versus a Walker Kessler, I think both players have similar trajectories. I think both players could be a shot blocking offensive impact for whatever team they're on. Specifically for Miami, though, I think they both fit. The difference comes, again, does Khalil Ware have the higher upside? Yes. In my opinion, he does. I do think strictly because of the offense, you have to give him the nod. Now, when we talk about the actual trade itself, do you make this trade today? No. Not just because you can't, but I don't think it would be smart for the Miami Heat to make this trade today just because you haven't given Khalil Ware any time. I don't think they're going to do this trade or any trade, really. They want to have a bigger sample size. Only 3 games. You really want to get into the thick of this first quarter of the season to see what you have. Give Khalil Ware some time. What I will say is I like the football approach here, if one could say. You could trade for a Walker Kessler and have him be the starting center and let Khalil Ware kind of learn from him on how to be a shot blocking presence, how to be how to not get in foul trouble, how to stay in certain positions on the offensive side of things to not clog up the spacing when you're in that dunker spot, when you're in the dribble drive, the DHOs that the Miami Heat love to run. I think that could be really, really good. Could that even lead to them playing together? Yes, because Khalil Ware can move a little bit on the perimeter. He is athletic enough to cover ground, and again, offensively, he can spread out the floor. Maybe you see a lot more of him putting the ball on the ground. I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility, even with a Bam. So I think Khalil Ware has the bigger upside. The question now comes, do the Miami Heat pull this trigger, pull this trade? I personally don't think they will now, but I do think it's something to keep in mind as the season goes on, especially because, again, you can attest to the biggest hole right now on that team, and that is the interior presence from the Miami Heat. Getting out-rebounded by the Detroit Pistons is not going to get it done. They need to clean that up. Not even necessarily out-rebound teams, but you can't lose by 10. Give me a 5. You lose by 5 on the rebound battle. I like that a lot better than losing by 10. It's just those 5 extra possessions could be the difference in a win or a loss come postseason time, which is what this team is looking for. With that being said, Khalil Ware, Walker Kessler, I do think there is a 7-foot center in the NBA, in the Miami Heat's future. Question is, will it be from outside or will it be from in-house? We will have to wait and see, and we will see you guys in the next one.